A very good evening and many thanks indeed for joining us on tonight's bulletin here on RwandaTV. These are the top stories for our viewers in Rwanda and those watching us from across the world. Now, the government of Rwanda and Uganda are urging the United Nations to pay close attention to the narratives that perpetuate the genocide against the Tutsi and also the genocide ideology spread in Democratic Republic of Congo.
And Kigali city officials and local authorities have been called on to intensify preparations for CHOGM meeting.
Members of the parliament have questioned the Minister of Finance and Economic Planning, Dr. Uziel Ndagijimana, why shareholders of BPR did not get dividends when the bank was being sold to various investors.
And on the international scene, the first flight carrying asylum seekers from Britain to Rwanda is expected to take place on the 14th of June from the UK. All right, thank you so much for choosing RTV News. I am Isabel Masozera.
I'm Ethan Techobia. You're watching RTV News live from Kigali. All right, there you have it. The government of Rwanda and Uganda are urging United Nations to pay close attention to the narrative that perpetuate the genocidal ideology and that continue to spread in Democratic Republic of Congo. This was stated by the representatives of both countries to the UN Security Council meeting that was intended to brief the UN on the ongoing security situation in Democratic Republic of Congo. We have this report.
Since the escalation of hostility between the FARDC and the M23 rebel group, the Congolese government has accused Rwanda of allegedly supporting the armed group. For the past weeks, some Congolese, including politicians and security officials, have openly pushed genocidal ideology by calling on their government forces to attack Rwanda and kill Rwandans and Congolese who speak Kinyarwanda, especially those of the Tutsi ethnic group. Rwanda's permanent representative to the United Nations, Ambassador Clever Gatete, has told the UN Security Council briefing on the situation in DRC that Rwanda is extremely concerned by the military cooperation between the Congolese government forces, FARDC, and FDLR, elements majority of whom are Rwandan genocide fugitives who are responsible for executing the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi.
What you see today, however, is sliding back into an undesirable state of affairs. The consequences are being borne by innocent civilians. Even more disturbing is a factor that should be of global concern beyond the Great Lakes region. This is the blatant resurgence of anti-Rwanda hate speech and calls for genocide that are being encouraged by some officials and politicians in the DRC and spreading through the population. You can see this in the social media and everywhere. Madam President, there should never be silence on this issue by this Council and the international community in view of what happened in Rwanda in 1994. Rwanda is extremely concerned by the military cooperation between FRDC and FDLR. This Council should be reminded that the presence of FDLR has caused untold suffering to the people of Eastern DRC and perpetrated insecurity in our region for close to 3 decades. We urge the United Nations through MONUSCO to not stand by and watch this alliance between FRDC and FDLR continue.
Uganda's permanent representative to the United Nations, Adonia Ayebare, also condemned the hatred and divisive rhetoric and also called on the international community to continue to support its efforts to address the issue of armed groups in the eastern DRC through existing regional mechanisms under ICGLR and the ESC.
We condemn hate speech in all its forms and manifestation. Given the recent history of our region, where over 1 million people perished in a genocide against Tutsis in Rwanda, hate mongers have no place in the discourse to address challenges facing our region. We call on the UN Special Advisor on Prevention of Genocide against Tutsis in Rwanda. Hate mongers have no place in the discourse to address challenges facing our region. We call on the UN Special Advisor on Prevention of Genocide to take interest in hate speech coming out of our region of recent.
The Kinyarwanda-speaking Congolese community in the eastern DRC are the ones most affected by the militant groups and their fellow Congolese citizens living in the east of Congo. However, Gatabazi journalist Ruti Kanga, who is closely monitoring the situation in the DRC, says it is shameful to prosecute someone calling them Rwandans because they speak Kinyarwanda.
Kuvuga Kinyarwanda ntibivuze ko uri umunyarwanda.
Speaking Kinyarwanda does not mean that you're Rwandan. There are ethnic groups in Uganda. There are Rwandans from Uganda. They face no problems being called Rwandans in Uganda. In the DRC, there are Congolese who speak Kinyarwanda. You can't say that these children born to King Ndeze are Rwandans. You'd fight to convince them otherwise. They are Congolese, but their grandfather was a king in Rushuru, in Masisi. They are residing there. In Minova, King Sangara is there. His father was called Bijirimana. Sangara spoke in Rwanda and said, I speak fluent, but my native language, which my father taught me as a king, is Kinyarwanda.
Ariko ururimi kavukire papa yanyigishije ari umwami ni Kinyarwanda.
Ambassador Clever Gatete stresses that in the last 9 years, Rwanda has made every effort to end the M23 crisis, but the DRC government has done little or nothing to address this issue.
Rwanda rejects the labeling of members of M23 as Rwandans. These are Congolese nationals, and therefore their grievances should be resolved internally in the DRC. For the purposes of clarification, allow me to recall that in 2013, following the defeat of the M23 by the 4th Intervention Brigade, a number of combatants fled to Rwanda and Uganda. Those that entered Rwanda were disarmed and transferred far away from the DRC border, which is where they remain as agreed by the regional mechanism at the time. Rwanda has also made efforts to facilitate various engagements between these Congolese ex-M23 combatants and their government, which culminated in an agreement and repatriation roadmap in 2019. As part of the process, the arms and equipment that the government of Rwanda seized from the group were handed over to the government of the DRC. But there has been a lack of commitment or interest on the part of the DRC to implement the repatriation roadmap.
As tensions between Rwanda and the DRC continue to rise, Angolan president has begun to act as the mediator between the two sides as he chairs the International Conference on the Great Lakes Region, ICGLR.
Secretary General for the information that they've...
All right, now moving on, members of the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Economy and Trade have questioned the Minister of Finance and Economic Planning, Dr. Ndagijimana Uze, why shareholders of BPR did not get dividends when the bank was sold to various investors, including recent acquisitions involving Atlas Mara and their new owners, KCB Group. Innocent Mugabo now reports.
Members of the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Economy and Trade questioned the Minister of Finance and Economic Planning, Dr. Uziel Ndagijimana, why the members of BPR were treated as shareholders but did not get dividends when the bank was being sold to various investors, even until the recent transfers of the bank to Atlas Mara and now the new owner under KCB Group. Members of Parliament have expressed dissatisfaction with the way in which information about the shares of Bank Populaire is kept secret, to the extent where members do not know that they are the owners of 12% of all the shares of the bank and the value of one share to date. How should people find out whether they are still members and part of those that are counted to own 10 billion? It is very hard to know whether the dividends were shared, since up to date, no one knows if they are still members of Bank Populaire or their shares or even their values. I suggest that, if possible, lists should be made indicating all members and their shares, and these should be pinned at all BPR branches for people to access any kind of information they might need. Minister Uziel Ndagijimana told members of parliament that it was due to a shortage of funds given to each shareholder because their shares were small. There is a problem to do with dividends, even though this money seems to be a lot, but if shared amongst members, it is small. It is about 0% in shares, so it is very small. According to a statement issued by the Minister of Finance and Economic Planning, BPR Bank accounts for about 80 billion Rwanda francs in total assets to date, whereas about 70 billion Rwanda francs belong to KCB Group as the largest shareholder, while the other members have 10 billion only. There should be a campaign to give options to shareholders. Some might want to withdraw their money and use it in other things, or sell the shares for small shareholders. There are 160,000 members of Bank Populaire who also count as shareholders. The Minister of Finance and Economic Planning notes that information regarding their assets is known, even though not all of them have been reached. Atlas Mara accounted for slightly more than 60% of all BPR shares, but the finance minister pointed out that KCB Group now owns just over 87% of all shares due to what he called a capital increase.
Thank you, Innocent, for that report. Now, the Minister of Local Government, Jean-Marie Vianney Gatabazi, has called on the Kigali City Authority and local officials to intensify their preparations for the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting due to take place from the week of June 20th. Jen Mutani brings us more.
As we count the days remaining for Rwanda to host the CHOGM meeting, there are infrastructure modifications and renovations taking place across Kigali and more under construction. Some residents are concerned that the meeting could begin before the work is completed.
Depending on the amount of time it usually takes to complete this kind of infrastructure, personally I think it's challenging. Unless the workforce increases and if the government sees it fit in order for CHOGM to start when it's all completed, then it will increase the workforce.
The mayor of Kigali City, Pudes Rubingisa, says that despite the delay in preparations due to rainfall, efforts are now being made to get the works done as soon as possible.
The
infrastructure activities are not yet complete due to the rainfall in the last couple of days, as it damaged some of it, which we are reconstructing, and also delayed others. The concerned authorities are working day and night to ensure that they are completed on time, and we assure you that it will be a success.
In a joint meeting of the Ministry of Local Government and the City of Kigali, districts and leaders of the 35 sectors of Kigali City focused on the preparations of the CHOGM meeting. The Minister of Local Government, Gatabazi Jean-Marie Vianney, urged officials to leave the office and monitor the activities so as to expedite the process. The CHOGM meeting is expected to take place in June 20th, 2022. It will be attended by more than 6,000 people from around the world, from the English-speaking countries. Jane Mutoni, RTV News.
Thank you, Jen. Now, this Wednesday, 1st June 2022, programs in space sciences and technology have officially started at the University of Rwanda. Now, these programs will enable learners at the university to detect problems early and prevent them from affecting residents. Jocelyn Mogwaneza now reports.
Space experts from countries in Regional Center for Mapping Resources for Development have signed a 5-year cooperation agreement with the University of Rwanda to provide programs about space sciences and technologies. Dr. Emmanuel Nkurunziza, Director General of the Regional Center for Mapping of Resources for Development, says how this will be implemented.
It's mentorship. Basically, we have identified experts from our side and the students, and then we have identified different programs through which we can connect them so that these experts can guide the students. So that beyond what they are learning in class, what is available in the market? because many of them learn how to collect data, to do surveying, to draw maps, but we are saying this is not the end. The end is how this can be transformed into information that can be used in sectors that are essential, agriculture and food security, water management, forest management, etc. So we want to help them transform them that raw academic knowledge into what is applicable in the field.
Students that will be receiving courses about space sciences and technologies are ready to solve problems the country has got.
We are facing with some environmental issues like landslide, flooding, mostly in northern province of the country. So we do believe that this training will help us to do monitoring, like which side is more, that we do have high risk zone to this disaster to do happen. Like we all know that these disasters are affecting livelihood in the community, ecosystem life. It's very an environmental problem that we do have.
It is equipping us with GIS and remote sensing skills, which will help us know or monitor and analyze the real-world problems. And these skills will also help us to be able to solve the problems. These problems will be solved using GIS skills and mainly using technology, which is a trend right now and it is really needed.
Professor Gaspar Gwanyiziri, the director of the Center for Geographic Information System and Remote Sensing at the University of Rwanda, has said that they usually do research to identify problems that may arise in the space and inform leaders about them in order to stop them from affecting the residents.
Among the courses we provide include space science courses such as climate change, how to deal with climate change, if there is a landslide at some places like Nyabihu district in the Western province, as it is known of having landslides, there is a way you can relocate people living there. But the first thing to do is to know more about the place and inform leaders about the research conducted and advise them to relocate those people from high-risk zones.
The Chief Executive Officer at Rwanda Space Agency, Colonel Francis Ngabo, explains how these students will be supported.
Rwanda Space Agency was created 2 years ago, and it has the mandate to develop space services for socio-economic development of the country. So what we're doing with the Center of Regional Mapping based in Nairobi is to collaborate with them to provide mapping, but based on satellite imageries. So this is what we are doing together with the RCMRD.
The Regional Center for Mapping of Resources for Development organized the RCMRD Space Challenge for those with space sector related projects to compete, and the winners will be rewarded $30,000. Ghislaine Mugwaneza, RTV News.
Thanks, Ghislaine, for that report. Now, the government of Finland has announced that it is going to start a project of training staff members and increase resource capacity at the Rwanda Meteorology Agency in Rwanda and also other agencies in the region, including those in Kenya and Tanzania. The project will be sponsored by Finland to help all these countries have information on climate change and conservation. Jen Mutoni once more.
The Finkarat project, championed by the government of Finland, will benefit the meteorology agencies from Rwanda, Kenya, Tanzania. The idea came after some of the concerned officials visited Finland, saw the need to acquire some of their knowledge on climate change information and how to take care of it. The three countries in which this project will be established shall work together on climate change strategies.
Ubutwererane buhuza ibihugu bitatu. Ukuvuga u Rwanda n'ibihugu bigeze nko kuri 4. Ukuvuga u Rwanda, Finland, Tanzania na Kenya.
It is a collaboration of 4 countries, which are Finland, as I mentioned, Rwanda, Tanzania, and Kenya. When it comes to climate change, it's something that requires cooperation because when one country implements measures and the other doesn't, it all goes to waste. So we are working together as 4 countries, as Finland will be supporting us in terms of monetary support and providing trainings for our staff and knowledge in general on climate change. We have now reached an impressive level.
hejuru muri ibyo ngibyo.
The project has two phases, according to Aimable Gahigi. The Director General of the Rwanda Meteorology Agency says that the first phase is focused on Rwanda independently, and the other is focused on how the three countries can work together. To Rwanda, this will help in providing reliable weather forecast.
As for the activities carried out in the country, there is preparation of measurements that are used for the weather forecast. And there is also information on the weather conditions, not only rain, but also on the air we breathe. So there will be those at the national level and others at the regional level. The reason for this partnership is to get accurate information on the weather, because it is a project that can't be implemented independently, hence the need for cooperation.
In the implementation of this project, climate change management experts will share their knowledge with the Finns, because even though Finland is going to support this project, there are some lessons to be learned from them as well.
Our experts come here to Rwanda to work together with our colleagues, and this way to exchange the capacities. It's not one way, it's two way. Both of us learn from each other. And the second is that the Rwandese experts come to Finland for study visits or internships, training, learning, hands-on training, because we have already these modern facilities in Finland, so we can also already use that in the training before you have it. So this is the way we want to collaborate. So it's a deep cooperation, peer-to-peer partnership with the expert level.
The Think Around project will be jointly implemented by Rwanda, Kenya, Tanzania and Finland for a period of 4 years. Jane Mutoni, RTV News.
In other news, King Faisal Hospital officials have said that due to how non-communicable diseases such as high blood pressure and diabetes are resulting in two health issues, it is the only reason as to why they are putting more efforts in cardiovascular surgery and kidney treatments.
Now, according to King Faisal Hospital, they have medical equipment to perform these operations, and there are others pending medical services that are expected to start by the end of this year.
Expanded our dialysis service. We used to have less than 10 dialysis machines. Now we are going to have another 10, so we have 20 dialysis machines, and we'll have we can give with 20 dialysis machine. We are giving also on 3 times a day on at different times. So in a day we have 3 sessions. So we can have up to 60 people can get. We have the capacity to give up to 60 patients to have dialysis. And we are also sending transplant surgeon, for kidney transplant surgeons. We will be traveling soon to Brazil. All arrangement is finished, so 2 of the fellows will go for training for a few months to be exposed with the nurses at Brazil.
King Faisal Hospital has also mentioned that it has permanently started to provide cardiovascular surgery services.
These days we are doing regularly open heart surgery. We have different missions coming here. So children and also adults as well who have problem on their heart, can be developmental or infectious, is being handled now. And for that we have partnership with different institutions. This year we have a new partner from Canada, from University of Dalhousie, which is called the Halifax Group. They are here working, operating for 2 weeks, 1 week on adult and 1 week on pediatrics.
Well, you know, the story is the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs of Mozambique, Helena Mateus Kida, is in Rwanda on a 4-day visit where she will look at the functioning of Rwanda's judicial system.
This Wednesday, she visited the Kigali Genocide Memorial. After visiting the memorial to learn about the history of the genocide in Rwanda and pay her respect to victims of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi, she noted that the world should strive to see that genocide does not happen again.
What I can say is that the woman or the lady that came to this place is no longer the same. And I'm sorry, not because I'm crying, but I'm sorry because all the terrific things that happened to these people, to Rwanda. So I think it was important for me to come. And this is only, how I can say, this is happening in all over the world. And maybe most of the people never had the opportunity to be as close as I was today. And I think that these tears of mine, it's because I'm feeling so sorry. And feeling that maybe I have no power to avoid the things like this repeats in other parts of the world.
That's all the time that we had for you tonight. Thank you so much for choosing RTV, and we hope to see you soon.
Absolutely. And from me and the entire news production team, from us rather, we say thank you so much. Until next time, I'm Ethan Tashabia.
And I'm Isabel Masozera.
Bye for now.